And good, bright, and beautiful morning. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Kimberly Mann, and this is Easy Bible Study. Over here on TikTok, we are Home for Americans, but everywhere else in the world, we are Easy Bible Study, and we are here to learn about God's Word today. We are in the book of Ruth, so grab your Bible, grab your notebook, because Ruth is about to move across her world. Kind of crazy, but it's about to happen, and she's going to have a lot of, well, not a lot of issues, but I mean, imagine she's moving to a completely different culture and even a different language. So, want to talk about immigrants? That's what we're here for today. We're talking about Ruth. So, grab your Bibles, grab your notebook, and let's get into it. I will be right back right after this.
You can have all this world, but give me Jesus.
On here, or else I get flagged. So, welcome back. Welcome back. And if you do find any value in the content this morning, do me a favor. Click like, subscribe, turn on that notification bell so you don't miss any of the content. And that's what we're here for this morning. So we're going to be in the book of Ruth. As you can see, we are in Ruth chapter 1. We're finishing up chapter 1 and going into Ruth chapter 2 this morning. So we are Ruth 1. If you don't know where Ruth is in the Bible, go not Matthew, Mark. Can you tell it's early for me? All right, so if you don't know where Ruth is in the Bible, you're going to start at the very beginning, and you're going to go Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth. So Ruth is the 8th book of the Bible. In my Bible, it is page 360. I'm on page 364, just to give you some context. You might be a little bit different from that, but not a whole lot different. You're probably going to be in the mid 300s there if you're looking for the book of Ruth, because we're still pretty much at the beginning of the Bible. As we talked about on Monday when we first started the book of Ruth, and we talked about the overview of everything. On Monday we talked about the fact that Ruth is actually set in the same time of the Judges, which it tells us that, like, right at the beginning of the book of Ruth. It says, now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled. So that is literally verse 1 of Ruth. So Ruth and Judges, even though Ruth in the Bible falls after Judges, it's actually in the middle of the book of Judges, or it's like during the same time period. So let's get into this. Give me a second on the other side, and we're going to get into the reading of the Bible over there. And then we will get that Bible reading in. And I obviously don't have this. So hopefully here, if you're on TikTok, you will grab your own Bible and be able to follow along with us. So Ruth 1, and we are in verse 18. So Ruth chapter 1, you've had plenty of time now to get that. Also, I will point out, I've got a goal at the top. I am trying to get to 1,000, because right now I can, on the other app, I can use my encoder. I can use vMix. I can't use it over here because I don't have a stream key yet. I need 1,000 subscribers in order to have a stream key. So really would love to make this much more flawless and much more seamless. It would be so much better rather than having to use my phone. And if TikTok could see me as legit. But anyway, let's get into this. We are in verse 18. We left off yesterday in 17. Ruth is begging Naomi, please, please, please don't make me leave you. And so, all right, so let's get over here and let's do this. All right. So when she saw that she steadfastly minded to go with her, she left speaking unto her. So they two went until they came to Bethlehem. And it came to pass, when they were come to Bethlehem, that all the city was moved about them. And they said, is this Naomi? And she said unto them, call me not Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty hath dealt very bitterly with me. I went out full, and the Lord... Excuse me a moment, guys. I got to change my glasses. This morning is a little bit foggy for stuff. There we go. I went out full, and the Lord hath brought me home again empty. Why then call ye me Naomi, seeing the Lord hath testified against me, and the Almighty hath afflicted me? So Naomi returned. There we go. Didn't get it done in time. So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, which returned out of the country of Moab. And they came to Bethlehem in the beginning of barley harvest. And Naomi had a kinsman of her husband's, a mighty man of wealth of the family of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabitess said unto Naomi, Let me now go to the field and glean ears of corn after him, in whose sight I shall find grace. And she said unto her, Go, my daughter. And she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And her hap was to light on a part of the field belonging unto Boaz, who was of the kindred of Elimelech. All right, so let's get back into this. There we go. Let's do that. And then I can put the other one on autopilot. Excellent. Here we are. So we are in Ruth. Let me see if I can on here. I'm hoping that over here I can at least put this up so you guys can see while I'm doing this and hopefully not get flagged in the process. All right, so here we are in the book of Ruth. Ruth and Naomi have gone on. Now, for those of you that don't know exactly where it is, I am going to, unfortunately, again, I can only show certain things on certain platforms. But this right here is, let's see if we can do this and merge this in. There we go. Turn that off. All right, so you can see, if you are on the other app, you can see the map. Unfortunately, I can't show the map on here. But you can see the map where they came from in Ker Haresh, right south of there. And they came all the way up to Bethlehem. That's actually a really long journey for two women alone to make. I mean, that is like days and days and days. That's not just, a week, or I mean, that's not just even a week probably. That for two women alone is probably close to a 2-week journey. Because remember, Naomi is saying she doesn't have anything left. Like, God's taken everything that she has, and she's not real happy about that. But that it is what it is, basically. So Naomi's like, okay, so it took them like 2 weeks or so probably to get up to Bethlehem, which means they would have had to have provisions, or they would have had to do some begging or gleaning or whatever along the way. So they do get up to Bethlehem, though, and that is where Naomi's family is. So that's what they're used to. All right, let's turn that map off. Now you don't need that. Let's turn that back on. All right, so the key here is that Naomi and Ruth have gone up to Bethlehem. Now, for those of you that couldn't see the map here on the other app, if you look at the map of the Dead Sea, and actually, let me see if I can find it. I've got maps in the back of my Bible here. So let me see if I can do this. Okay. If I'm showing you this right here. Okay, here's the map right here. Moab is way down here, south of the Dead Sea. And they would have had to come all the way up. And where's Bethlehem? There's Bethlehem right there. So there's Bethlehem, but they were living all the way down over here in Moab. So that is where they had to travel from, is from there to there. All right? And that's quite a long journey. It's quite a long way. All right. Judges, let's get back to our passage here. So, first of all, we have to look at the fact that it took them forever to get there. And I apologize. I did just have a... I just had a fraud alert on my phone, so I need to say something to that. Okay, let's see if that works. Sorry about that, guys. I'll go back to the camera here. All right. Apologize. So anyway, we are in the book of Ruth, and let's do what we do normally. So for those of you that aren't used to this, I actually do notes, and I grab a book, and if you are actually part of my Patreon, you get my notes for free. So if you're watching any of my other stuff, you get access to my notes if you are a member of my Patreon. All right, so we are in Ruth 1:18, and we start with that verse. And it says, when she saw that she was steadfastly minded to go with her, which then she left speaking unto her. So basically verse 18 is telling us If you remember, we said in verse 16 and 17, Ruth goes, I'm not leaving you. Don't make me leave you. Don't do that. I want your God to be my God. I want your people to be like when I married Malon, when I married your son, that was it for me. That was everything. And good morning, Teru. That was everything for me. I married into your family. Your family is my family. That's what I'm sticking with. And that's where I am. So she begs her to let her stay with her. And Naomi says, no, Naomi is convinced. Naomi is convinced to let Ruth come with her. All right, here we go. Putting our notes in. All right, now moving on to verse 19. It says, so that they too went out until they came to Bethlehem, and it came to pass, when they were come to Bethlehem, that all the city was moved about them and said, is this Naomi? So what's interesting about this is that their appearance, first of all, keep in mind that Naomi's been gone over 10 years. And so, yeah, it has been over 10 years. Well, that was weird. I don't know what just happened there. It has been over 10 years since Naomi has been there. And she's like really changed. Keep in mind, she went out happy. Hey, we're going to Moab because there's nothing to eat here. We're moving to a new country. We are going to have plenty of food because over in Moab, they've got food. So she and her husband left with the idea of we're going to build a better life for ourselves in Moab. And then that didn't happen because she gets over there and she and her sons and her husband, I should say, all four of them went over, and exciting kids, we're going to start a new life. And they get over there and things don't go at all as planned. In fact, so much so that they don't. Yeah, I apologize, guys. Something weird is happening on the other platform. So give me just a second, because it keeps flashing up something that shouldn't be flashing. Can't really stop it. All right. Oh, I know why it's doing that. Okay. Hold on. I'm just going to do that then. There we go. All right. Got to get that to stop. Apologies for that, guys. So when they get back, it's been over 10 years because, first of all, it took them a few weeks to get to Moab. When they get to Moab, they've been there a while, obviously, and her husband dies. And so maybe they were there for 5 years and her husband dies. Now her sons, but I will say her sons are grown at this point because then they take wives of the Moabites and Orpah and Ruth. And so we're probably talking a 15 to 20 years that Naomi has been gone. So Naomi's been gone and it's been 15 to 20 years and she comes back. Now she's come back and she's devastated. She probably left with a very light heart and happiness. She's come back absolutely crushed. Absolutely crushed. She comes back and she says, and the people around notice it in how she looks. How she looks has changed. And so when Naomi comes back, they don't recognize her. They are shocked at how she looks. And almost don't recognize her, I should say. And they're like, is this Naomi? Wow, she's like so different looking. Well, yeah. Yeah, a wife who loses her husband, and then a mother who loses both of her sons in a span of, 10 to 15 years, she's had a ton of grief come into her life. And in fact, when she says this, in verse 20, she said unto them, call me not Naomi, call me Mara. So we're going to look up that word Mara. I mean, I already know what it means because I've studied this story many times before, but for your sake, let's look up the word Mara. And you know what? These are better glasses for reading off the screen, but these are better glasses for reading my Bible. There we go. All right, so our number under the word Mara is 4751. So if we go back to our lexical aids to the Old Testament, and we go to 4751, so we're getting into our lexicon. 4751. Mar or Mara. This Hebrew adjective stems from 4843. It means bitter, literally or figuratively, sad, embittered, fierce, violent, wild. So she goes, nope, don't call me Naomi anymore. That's not my name. My name is bitter. Call me Mara, which means bitter or sad. So bitter or sad. She goes, call me Mara, for the Almighty hath dealt very bitterly with me. Naomi, that she should be called Mara or bitter. All right, get this in our notes. She's like, it's really bad. It's really, really bad. Call me Mara, because I'm that bitter. It's awful. Odd for YouTube today. Everything's very, very not like it looks on my side. All right, verse 21. So she's like, that's why I look so bad. She goes, that's why I look so horrible. I look so horrible because God has dealt very bitterly with me. I'm depressed. I'm sad. I'm bitter. I'm angry. Yeah, of course I look different, naturally. And I think that's a really interesting commentary, because we oftentimes think that our emotions don't have, like, we can be and feel and dwell in an emotion however we want, as much as we want. And yet, no, we can't. We can't do that. Because it comes out on us. There's a old, not old book, but written in the 1800s, picture of, or the portrait of Dorian Gray. And it talks about how this man lived his life however he wanted, and all the sins of his life showed up on this portrait that was painted of him and not on his own face. And the portrait was twisted and evil and awful looking. He still looked as gorgeous and as beautiful as he did in his youth, until he just got tired of the sin of the world and the lifestyle. Well, Naomi here is the same. Her bitterness, her sadness, her depression, it's all showing on her whole body, not just on her face, but on all of her. We don't know if she lost weight. We don't know if her face is just all scrunched up in anger and bitterness all the time now, and when maybe she used to be a very joyful person. Going on to 21, she's explaining. She goes, I went out full, and the Lord hath brought me home again empty. Why then call ye me Naomi, seeing the Lord hath testified against me, and the Almighty hath afflicted me? So in verse 21, she says, I'm bitter because God took everything away. What's interesting is that later on we're going to see the story of another person who God took everything away from. We see this in the book of Job. God took everything away from him, but he didn't get bitter. He questioned things. He talked to God about it, but he didn't get bitter. But Naomi's like, I'm bitter because God took everything away. I went away full, and now I have nothing. That's why I'm bitter. That's why you can't recognize me. So Naomi, in verse 22, so Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, which returned out of the country of Moab. And they came to Bethlehem in the beginning of barley harvest. All right? Now, you're going to do this live with me because I did not look this up. So I'm going to, ahead of time, and I was planning to, and I apologize that I didn't. But what we're going to do right now, let's find out what time of year this is. What time of year is barley harvested in Israel? It is typically harvested in the spring, running from late March through May. It is the first grain to mature, often harvested around the time of Passover, and generally ripens about a month before the wheat harvest. Okay? So, harvest begins in warmer, lower areas like Jericho in early April, while on the higher ground around Jerusalem, it occurs in May. So, we are talking, this is probably early May, late April that they are in Bethlehem, because Bethlehem's not that far from Jerusalem. So, it's definitely in a different region than Jericho. So, we're going to talk about late April, early May. So, we now know what time of year it is. And they came to Bethlehem in the beginning of the barley harvest. All right? So they arrived in late April, early May. And good morning, honey. Husband is having some back issues today. Or definitely a lot yesterday. And some today too, hon? Still not feeling great. So they arrived in late April, early May in this barley season. All right, which is important. Now we're going into chapter 2 here. So we're going to go into chapter, because this is the end of chapter 1. So we're kind of setting this setting. Now here's the second part. Now I'm putting these together for a reason, because we needed to know Naomi's state of mind. We needed to know what time of year they came back, because it is relevant to this story. Because Naomi now says in chapter 2, verse 1, or not, she doesn't say, but God says, and Naomi had a kinsman of her husband's, a mighty man of wealth of the family of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. So we are introduced to Boaz here. Okay? And there's a bunch of different things about Boaz that are important. We're introduced to Boaz. And what's important about him? Well, first of all, 1, he's mighty. 2, he's wealthy. 3, he's in Naomi's family. So he is part of her family. So that's kind of important when it comes to this. And of course, his name is Boaz. So verse 2 here, and Ruth the Moabite. Now, if somebody is wealthy in this time period, there's only 2 reasons that somebody is wealthy and or mighty, or considered. When it says mighty, it means that he was a man of influence. That's what it really means when it says he was a mighty man of wealth. It doesn't mean that his wealth was just, I mean, it does mean his wealth was mighty, but it also means that he as a man was considered a mighty man, which probably means he's also one of the leaders in the city. So he's probably also part of the local government, so to speak. And there are only 2 ways that a man became mighty in the ancient world like this. Number 1, they were a merchant. Number 2, they were a farmer or things of that nature. And in his case, in Boaz's case, he's a farmer or a landowner with land that he grows crops on. And so we say, and Ruth the Moabitess said unto Naomi, let me now go to the field and glean ears of corn after him in whose sight I shall find grace. And she said unto her, go, my daughter. All right, so Ruth says she's going to glean. Now, gleaning is something you may not be aware of what that is. So we're going to say she's going to go glean corn in the fields. Now, it's not really corn season, but sometimes there's a little bit of corn left. So, gleaning in the fields, what they did was they would follow the the people who were harvesting whatever the product was, and they would follow along behind them. And good morning, Nathan. Nice to see you. Welcome, welcome. Give you a bit of a wave there. Um, so they would follow along behind them and pick up whatever they dropped. So when you are pulling together sheaves of barley and you're gathering them tight for yourself, and you're pulling them, and the harvesters are going through really quick. But glean, what would happen is some of the little bits of the barley would drop off on the ground, but they just be little bits, and they just were not worth it. They needed to get the harvest in before it went bad, so they would just leave them. No big deal. And it was actually a commandment. It was part of the commandments that God gave in Deuteronomy, Numbers, Leviticus, in that section when all the rules for Israel came down. And so that they were supposed to leave a little bit on the ground for the poor, because what it did was it gave the poor an opportunity to make money for themselves by working without having ownership. And so that's what actually is happening here, is that Ruth is saying, look, we have this wealthy family member who owns a lot of fields. Let me go and glean after their harvesters and get some food for us, because that way, that's something I can do as a single widowed woman. I can go get food for us, because Naomi, you're old and you need to be taken care of. And I came back with you because I'm going to take care of you. So Ruth is suggesting that since they have this relative who is a landowner and has a very wealthy man, that she should go into his fields, or into his area anyway, and start gleaning. And so that's what Naomi says. Yeah, she goes, that's fine. A, it's part of the law of Moses. It's what they're supposed to be allowed to do. B, he is actually their family member. And then C, I mean, it's Ruth actually doing something to try and take care of Naomi, which of course she is trying to do. So this is in chapter 2. We are in chapter 2, verse 2 here. We're almost finishing up with this. But so she goes, yeah, go for it. That's allowed and acceptable and awesome and amazing. So Ruth says she's going to go glean in the field, and so she does. And in verse 3, and she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers, and her hap was too light on a part of the field belonging unto Boaz, who was of the kindred of Elimelech. So she's going to go glean in general. And good morning to everybody else who's coming in. She's going in to glean for other people, going in to glean anyway. And so now she happens to come across the part that is actually definitely and directly Boaz's. And so that's where she goes. Russ, don't go far. I know. Don't go far. Please. So anyway, she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers, and her hap was to light. It just so happened that she came across Boaz's. All right? It just so happened. She landed in Boaz's field. All right. And gleaning is still, even to this day, something that people do. Where we have our home right now, we haven't sold it yet, but where our home is actually, I found out in the last couple of years, because we are emptying our home of stuff and we were getting rid of stuff. I actually got tagged by my city because I put some stuff out and put a sign on it that says free. Come, go ahead, take what you want. And I actually had a member of the city inspector, or somebody anyway, somebody from the city came along to my house, knocked on my door and said, Racine has an anti-gleaning. You can't do this in Racine, Wisconsin. I was like, what? They're like, yeah, we have an anti-gleaning law. You can't do this. You're not allowed to put things out for free. Now, I think that's completely wrong. Personally, they're like, yeah, that's the city, that part where you put it out, you can't do that. So what I started doing was I put it back on my property, where they can't tell me what I can and can't do on my property. And I had a scrapper as well that came across one day. And I don't know if you guys know what a scrapper is, but at least in our area where our house is, there are people who go around collecting scrap metal and things like that, and then they take it into the junk metal thing. It's a form of gleaning. I know, isn't that crazy, Nathan? There are these people who could have free stuff that I don't need anymore, that I don't think is worth putting up on Facebook Marketplace to sell because it's in okay condition, but I would feel a little embarrassed asking somebody for money for it. So I could, this is what's a crazy thing. I could have a garage sale, but, and sell things for money, but I'm not allowed to give things away for free. I know. Well, and here's the thing. What I've found as the way around this is if I put up a garage sale sign and then put stuff on a table or near a table and then put a free on it, then it doesn't matter because now it's a garage sale and I'm selling it for free. So it's a crazy thing that a city can say. But literally, he actually even used that word. The city guy said, "We have an anti-gleaning ordinance and you can't do that." It's, to be honest, this is one of the reasons why we are selling that house. We are not happy with the very anti-Christian, anti-charity, high government that exists in that city, because we don't want to be in a city where we cannot give away freely. So now, so basically what it is they're like, well, it's anti-gleaning because we don't want people coming in. We don't want people coming in and like grifting their way through our city, because if you put stuff out for free, but then if you put stuff out and it doesn't say free on it, somebody is going to think that that is something they can, they'll say, well, it could be then perceived as somebody might steal something from you. I'm like, if I'm stupid enough to leave something out with a big sign that says free on it and somebody takes it, well, of course, I very much think that is, I think that's a pretty clear sign they're not stealing. They're like, well, we don't know the difference. And if a cop comes along and they see them, taking this, they might think that they're stealing and arrest them. And I'm like, that is okay. But this is what I said. This is very high government. I won't talk about political parties so much, but there is a particular political party that's in charge of our city that is very much, thinks that government rules over everything else. Like, as in, what the government says is more important than what the people need. And see, that's a problem for me. I think what people need is they need a helping hand sometimes. And if I have something that I'm no longer going to use, either I'm replacing it, or in this case, because we're getting our house ready to sell, I think I should be able to give it away. And I think it's my stuff. I should be able to give it away. And I don't want to put it on Facebook Marketplace as free, because then I have to be at home when somebody comes, and I've got to put my home address out for like the whole world to see, which I'm not excited about doing that. Because I don't think my home address is good for all of the public, but I want to be able to help my local community. The nice thing is we do have this woman who came by one day. She was looking, they come to your door and they knock and they say, do you have any scrap metal? And you can give it to them and they'll take it away, cans, bottles, whatever. Well, a lot of the stuff. So when we moved into the RV, we actually had some big things of metal that we took off. There was a big old satellite dish on the roof that obviously we weren't going to be doing whatever the package was for that. I mean, it was crazy. It was old. So we took that all off. So we had that metal. It's like, oh yes, absolutely. Here, have some metal. And even creating this little office here, there was a big metal bracket down on the side here that we took out. So yeah. So anyway, so we now have a system set up with her. I have a planter that my husband made that we did not sell, and we need to get rid of it, but it's empty. We've never put dirt in it. But now what we do is we put our scrap in that. And so when she comes by, she knows that she can just grab the scrap out of there. She doesn't have to come. So it might be considered gleaning, but I honestly, let the city try to tag me. Let them try to. I would probably, when I get back and we take care of all this, I would probably be more likely to highlight it and take it to the news and say, look, we have a tough economy and I'm trying to give things away and the city will not let me. And I'd rather give our city authorities a black eye or a bloody nose or whatever the term is, over not allowing me to give to my community, not allowing me to give it out. I'm fine with that. So, but it just so happened. So in this case, though, in the case of Ruth, she is now following behind the gleaners for Boaz. She happens to land in Boaz's field, which is really good because it's in the ancient world and even now when you go into a farm area, you don't necessarily know when you're going from one person's property to the next unless you know where those lines are. And of course, remember, Ruth has just come from Moab. She doesn't know the area. She doesn't know the people. She doesn't know all the demarcations and boundary lines. So it happened that she landed on Boaz's field. Well, if you're a Christian, there ain't nothing that just happens. We know this. And definitely the fact that this story is written down, we know there is no happen chance here that she just happened to fall in Boaz's field. She didn't connive it, but God orchestrated that, of course. All right, guys, give me just a second so I can finish on the other side. And then if anybody wants to join and ask any questions over here on the clock app. So thanks so much. Let me do this over here. Wind this one up. I am still staying here, so don't go anywhere. Just give me about 1 second. All right, guys, thanks for joining me, and I appreciate so much you joining me this morning, and we will be in Ruth again tomorrow. And if you have any comments or questions, put them down in the chat, and I will answer them on YouTube when I see them. And thanks for coming in today, and bye for now.
Was my cry had darkness